the old film called J'accuse.
J'accuse. Great title.
But a title that confused me. A title that very much confused me because I thought until I watched this that this was a movie about the Dreyfus Affair, and it is very much not.
No.
And it took me a little.
It is about accusations mostly.
Yeah, I was very confused. I was thinking like, okay, this is 3 hours long. Maybe they're introducing these side characters as like a point of view kind of thing. There is some like weirdly conspicuous Jewishness stuff going on in this movie, and so I thought like, okay, it's about the Dreyfus Affair. We just haven't gotten to him yet. And yeah, eventually there was a calendar that said 1914. I was like, I guess not.
Nope. Yeah, nothing to do with that whole story.
Yeah.
It's a World War I drama.
Another love triangle as well.
Indeed, that is actually would have been a very good segue that we did not use.
Yes, it would have.
Well, this film was directed by Abel Gance. I think I'm saying that correctly.
Nice. I was gonna say Abel Gance.
Whatever. Anglicized it. Whatever. Abel Gance, who will go on to direct some other important French silent films. This is not his first film, I don't think. But this is the first one we're covering on here.
No.
I will say right off the bat, I was intrigued and impressed by this movie because the very title card saying J'accuse is a bunch of actual soldiers standing out in a field, like
spelling out the word,
forming the letters J'accuse
with the apostrophe.
Yeah, which is very cool. This whole movie I was very impressed by. It does a thing that I think a lot of silent movies from this time period does that movies don't really do anymore, where like it'll introduce like the director and the cast with their name and then also kind of a little like a moving portrait of them, almost like a little clip, not a clip from the actual movie, but like a little close-up of them like looking around or like saying something.
It's kind of nice, but I do not have the short-term memory for when they do that. Like I just instantly forget everything that this is supposed to introduce you to the characters, but I need the movie to introduce me to the characters. I need context. It's a nice thing. It's a nice little touch, but it means nothing to me.
Well, that might be a reason why they don't do it anymore, because it's like,
maybe
introduce them to the movie. Whole lot of accusing happening, especially in the early sections of this.
I mean, especially in the later sections of this. There's like
just all throughout, really.
I was like having a bit of a hard time like wrapping my head around like what they were trying to do with the word j'accuse in this movie. There's a couple things that they're trying to do with it, and that kind of like solidify into one thing toward the end of the movie. It's definitely like one of the main themes here is like accusing people, and like through that implicitly like I don't know, kind of judging people for their misdeeds, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is ridiculous, because one of the toughest things that my toughest problems that I had watching this movie is that there is a character who they just don't judge for his misdeeds, and you just go along with him being a terrible person, and you're supposed to be okay with that.
Yeah. This movie is a very angry movie, which I do feel like comes across in it. Like, so the director, Abel Gance, was sort of worked as a documentary filmmaker on the front during World War One. This movie was shot, I think, mostly in 1918. While they were still fighting in France. He was sent back, I think, possibly from an injury. I should research that. Yes, I think you're correct. But so then he was not a fan of the war and decided to make this movie about it. And this movie is very staunchly, I think, anti-war.
I don't think so.
No?
I think that he is not a fan of the death involved in war, but this movie almost feels like pro-war to me, like jingoistic.
It is weird. It is weirdly kind of kind of like nationalistic or jingoistic, while also being like war is like death is terrible. Look at the awful destruction we have wrought, kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I might have liked this movie less than you. I feel like its confused messaging and theming really get in the way of it like coming together as a movie. I think there's a lot of really impressive stuff in this movie. There are a lot of really great moments, and I just don't know how well it all like comes together. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's sort of the main plot of it is there's like I guess 3 leads, I would say.
So the 3 main characters are Francois, who is violent piece of shit guy, who abuses his wife, and his wife is Edith, who, unrelated to that abuse because this guy is just awful. Edith is in love with the poet who's kind of the main character, Jean Diaz. And so they are the 3 principal characters, and it's sort of a love triangle between the 3 of them.
And yeah, the movie begins in France pre-war, and they're all just kind of out living in the countryside, and it's mostly just about this sort of love triangle. Edith will go out and meet Jean by the stream, and then we see Francois just strolling by with his gun. He's got like a whole room full of guns in this movie. There is a very cool shot when he like sees them together from far away, and he points his rifle at them, and there's a rack focus from them standing to the barrel of the rifle that he's holding. Which is not something that I often see in movies this early, I feel like. So
that's definitely like there's definitely a lot of really stylish stuff going on with the cinematography in this movie. There are a lot of like close-up objects or characters that are almost like in these black voids, so that you can just focus on the thing itself, which is cool. It's almost like this like slipping from reality in a way to just like pay attention to this thing. Look at this, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's cool. There's also a lot of like really showy, neat shots in here as well.
Yeah. A lot more of those like sort of unusual framing, like building the frame out of different shapes that aren't just a square or a rectangle.
Yes.
That's pretty interesting to see.
So basically, like, you know, there's this kind of dynamic that's established between the 3 of them, and Francois is kind of feeling like, you know, the 2 of them are married, there's no chance, and his mom tells him this as well. He lives with his mom, and he is trying to become a poet, or he is a poet, and he's writing a book. His mom loves his poetry, and he reads to her as she falls asleep his Ode to the Sun, which I feel like is a bit of a cliche thing to write about, but whatever. And I thought something that I thought was really interesting is, you know, there's this scene where he is reading the poem to his mother, and there have been other movies that we've seen where a poem has been either depicted or read or something like that on screen, and it will usually just show the text in the title card. But rather than doing that in this movie, it's showing like this kind of beautiful nature scenery and like spring fairies and stuff that he's talking about in his poem. And so it is visually communicating what he is speaking of, which I think is really cool. It's a tone poem. It's all very sweet. His mother, the conspicuous Jewishness that I was talking about is that like Francois is like drinking out of a big mug that has the Star of David on it.
I don't know if I even caught that.
I rented it from Flickr Alley, and they have the high definition, very nice, very nice edition. But
does that ever come up elsewhere in the movie? Weird.
I mean, you see the mug a couple more times, but like,
Yeah.
there doesn't seem to be any kind of commentary on any of this stuff, which is what I was searching for when I was still thinking
Right.
that this was a movie that had to do with anti-Semitism
Right.
in turn of the century France. But so I was like, oh, they're making the bad guy conspicuously Jewish, weird. But then like also like Jean Diaz is also Jewish because his mother keeps a menorah out all year.
Hmm.
um, so I don't know what's going on with that. I guess they're just incidentally Jewish, which you're allowed to be. It just seems like some strange details, especially the mug. I don't really know what's going on there. um, anyway, war were declared, and unlike a normal response when war is happening in your country, everybody like throws a parade because they're so excited to go to war.
Yeah.
They're so excited to like defend the glory of France.
Which I get the impression a lot of countries felt that way at the beginning of World War One. It's like, oh, grand adventure. We're all gonna go to war. This is gonna be great. Like,
It's odd because like when you think about World War One in relation to World War Two, right?
mhm.
Like World War Two was about varying amounts of like understanding of what was happening like with regard to the Holocaust at the time.
Mhm.
But like what they did know was that it was like a country that was being racist and invading other countries, and they wanted to stop that, right? Where World War One, at least to my understanding, is just like a bunch of like treaty nonsense. It's like one assassination sparked a bunch of like interlocking treaties that just meant that like everybody had to go to war because of
Yeah.
people who were allies and not allies, and
pretty
like
much.
so it all felt extremely pointless.
Mhm.
And so I guess the only thing that you can be excited for is nationalism if you're deciding to die over like the sanctity of France's treaty with Italy or something like that.
Yeah. But like even beyond sort of all of the sort of cultural depictions of World War One that I've seen, which is my main sort of source of knowledge about it. The Peter Jackson documentary gets into that a little bit, and that has actual recorded interviews from veterans that were recorded, I think, in the 1950s or 60s. Well, yeah, they were just like, let's all go. This will be like a great couple of weeks.
That's how I felt at the beginning of COVID. Like, it's a nice little vacation.
Yeah. There is I think it's before this happens. There's something that another joke that I wrote down that I want to point out.
Joke time.
Yeah.
Everybody prepare for a
Oh my
joke.
So, not Francois. Who's the other guy?
Jean.
Jean. So Jean is writing love letters to Edith, and he uses the formal vous in his love letter. What kind of weirdo does that?
I don't know. Is it like maybe like a form of respect? I don't know how French works.
Yeah, I guess I don't either. Anyway, that's the only joke I had. Continuing.
Francois is drafted into the military, and he sends a little boy to go and find out if Jean is also drafted, and because he's like extremely jealous, and he finds out that Jean is, but he is going to depart a month later, and he's like, oh God, oh no, like my lady's gonna get poached by Jean Diaz,
The poet.
the poet. And so he sends Edith, who they both love, sends her off to like live with his parents, I think, in like another village.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so he, job done, good. He goes off to war. And then pretty soon after he leaves, both of them find out that she was in an area where the Prussians, would it be at this time? Germans, Proto-Germans, had invaded, and she was captured and had went missing. And Jean realizes that there is no point in staying at this point because he kind of did want to get with Edith. And so he just joins himself, maybe hoping to find her in some way, but he doesn't really actively do that. and they end up in the same company. Jean ends up being Francois's superior, and then there's this whole kind of power dynamic thing going
Yeah.
on.
Francois doesn't want to follow orders from some rascally poet that's been macking on his wife.
There's all this kind of stuff going on with Jean not wanting to follow orders and all that, and eventually there's like a dangerous mission that a superior of both of them assigns. Francois. It's like the second most like French name I can think of, but I can't remember it. After Pierre, of course. But there's an especially dangerous mission that they want to send Francois on, and Jean decides kind of to like gain Francois's respect to do the mission instead, which I thought could easily backfire because he gets all the glory. But Francois doesn't matter or doesn't care, and they kind of become friends and they respect each other, including learning to respect that they both individually love Edith the same, but one of them happens to be married to her, and they end up being okay with that.
They form a sort of begrudging respect and friendship for each other through this sort of trauma of being in a trench in World War One.
Yeah. Jean starts collapsing at points, and he is sent home. And then, while he is home for a while, Edith reappears, and she reappears with a child. Sacre bleu!
Mon Dieu!
This child is kind of like a tricky thing because they know, even though they have respect and they're buds now, Jean knows that Francois is a like extremely violent, bad dude, and he's like, hey, like, what's going on with this kid? And it turns out that, like, you know, she was raped by German soldiers. There are some very kind of like stunning shots as far as like the shadows of like the behelmeted soldiers kind of converging around her. They don't show anything, but it's, you know,
it's done as artfully as one would expect that sort of scene to be handled in a silent movie.
Right. And so this is like a, you know, half German, half French daughter, which is kind of like what was going on in that Mary Pickford, Cecil B. DeMille movie.
Right. Yeah. I will say, as soon as the kid's name is Angèle, which is a very on-the-nose name for a child. But as soon as they show up, I'm just like, if anything happens to this kid in this movie, I'm going to flip a table. This kid immediately shows up and is like the most adorable child anyone has ever seen.
She is very adorable.
And it's like, because this movie's already established that it's like, it's not afraid for like awful things to happen to its characters. And I'm like, if this kid gets like blown up by a bomb or something, I'm going to be upset. That
which is
happen.
the point.
Yes,
it's just that she gets threatened to be murdered by her
repeatedly.
dad.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's one scene later on which I thought was actually really sad, which was like, I guess the other kids in town like found out that, you know, her dad's a German or whatever, and they are like playing these like horrific games with her where they put like one other kid like in a blindfold and put him up against a wall, and then they put like a German military helmet with like the pointy thing on her, and then have her like shoot a BB gun at him, and like she like breaks down crying. She doesn't want to shoot this kid. She's like 3.
Yeah.
And it's a very upsetting scene.
It really is. Yeah. And yeah, so then Jean knows all this, and he's like, can't let Francois find out because he will murder this 3-year-old child because he would feel shamed by it, or some dumb reason like that.
Yeah.
But of course, and so then there's this sort of like, there's a section of the movie where they're kind of like trying to hide it. They're both back from the front, and they're sort of trying to pass off this child as like someone else's kid. And there's all these things where it's like, hey, how come you're all being friendly with this kid now? And it's like, oh, it's my like my niece or whatever. Like there's all these sort of charades that they're trying to do
Yeah.
to like keep the wool over his eyes, and he's getting more and more suspicious. Until he does find out, and is very unhappy, and is like, I'm going back to the right. Isn't that's the point where he's like, I'm going back to the front to like reclaim my honor or
Yeah.
some shit.
Blow off steam so that I don't murder a 3-year-old.
Exactly. This is, I think, the section of the movie that I like the least, when it's like basically all the men in the movie, including I think it's Edith's father.
Yeah.
They all like immediately return to the front to be like, we are so shamed by this that we have to like avenge your honor or some like
We
they're-
hate this adorable child so
yeah.
much.
And it's like, what? I can't really tell if it's like, I think the movie is somewhat critical of that kind of mindset, but at least
Yeah, but-
in the moment it's sort of like, of course they would do these things, and it's like, I don't know, this is like very, maybe
That's
I
the
just
thing,
I
it's
don't
like-
understand the old-timey mindset as well as I could, but
This is really like a lot of my problem with this movie is that, you know, and especially as we'll talk about in a second, like it's making these accusations of like people's character, right?
accusations, as it were.
So it's making these accusations, and this movie insists on seeing Francois as this like respectable good guy, and I think that there's a way that you can take that that's like complex, right? Maybe like he has bad aspects, but there's still good aspects to him.
That's what the movie's going for, I think. I don't really think it pulls it off. I think he's
No.
far too awful throughout. Even when he's when it's trying to kind of portray him as a more honorable or good person, he still kind of
Yeah.
comes across as this like very stuck up asshole character.
Yeah. You can have a character be complex and bad and good, you know? But like what are they doing with his badness, right? Like what's the point of what they're doing? I don't see it, you know? It just seems like it's the drama that you have like an abusive dad like in like in Broken Blossoms, you know?
I think it almost gets at a thing of how like bruised pride is like a dangerous thing, and how that is like a destructive quality in a person. But I don't really think it's hard to tell even if the movie is actually like condemning that or if it's supporting it a little bit more.
Right. Well, so let's get ahead to the part of the movie, to the end of the movie, which I think, like, I thought was initially interesting and cool, and then as it played out, I thought that it was kind of, like, invalidating anything, like, complex about what was going on, which is they both return to the front, they respect each other again, and basically, like, simultaneously, Francois dies and Jean goes mad. And they send him back home again. And it's a little unclear as he arrives that he's mad. And it's this kind of, like, melodramatic realizing that Edith has. She's like, oh, my God, like, my guy, he's great. He was taking care of the kid, you know? And then it turns out that he's just, like, rambling and raving about things. He goes around town and puts slips of paper by everyone's doors saying, like, come to Edith's house at 10 p.m. And I'm going to tell you about your dead relatives. And he does. Yeah, so they all show up.
Who wouldn't want to do that?
They all show up. She's like, why are all these people at my house? They all show up, and then he says, like, basically, I have seen your dead relatives. I've seen, like, the things that you did to them. J'accuse you. J'accuse you of being, like, bad people who are not respecting the military and your soldiers who are fighting for your nation. Here's how. Like, you know, your husband is off fighting, and you're canoodling with other men. Your father entrusted his business to you, and you're running it unscrupulously. like all this stuff, basically him saying like you need to show like the what the men who are fighting are doing is good, and you need to show like reverence and deference to them. And if you don't, my zombie army will get you.
Yeah. So
um,
the there is a sort of more of a ghost army, I would say. I mean, yeah, it's like there's a very cool shot of
yeah,
a field of crosses, which then kind of does, and like
yeah,
dark
that is
clouds.
a really
It's
cool
sort
shot.
of a double exposure, like matte shot with like dark clouds behind it. And
Hmm.
then there's a sort of like a fade effect where the crosses fade into the corpses of all the soldiers, and they all
Yeah,
rise and start walking back towards the village, and they all walk into the village and you know look through the windows all spooky at the people in the houses, and they're all like, Papa, my husband, my son, and they're all looking in all spooky.
yeah, and like specifically, they like attack the people that he's accused in his
Yeah.
speech, and they see them and they run away. And like they have characters questioning like, are we just like all having some mass delusion right now? Like this madman came in and told us that like a ghost zombie army is going to attack us. And he says they won't attack you if you are properly respectful.
The dead
Uh,
speak.
yeah. um, and like who is Edith respecting, right? Who does Edith respect? That's the question. And like what she is supposed to respect is her awful husband, right? Like he to me was doing this because he felt guilty about being in love with a man who he respected's wife.
Mm.
And so he felt like he was accusing himself, or at least like offsetting
Mhm.
it on other people, and saying like everybody who is disrespecting the soldiers, you're bad, and that includes your awful, awful husband, So anyway, the zombies attack some people. It's not really explained.
It's not really like a zombie attack. Like that is, I think, setting. If you watch this movie, I think that's setting up maybe some false expectations.
I don't know. They look like they hold their hands in front of them,
They
almost
do.
like zombies.
No, but I mean, it's
They-
not like, I don't know. It's not like a full on, like they're not like attacking the village so much as they're sort of like
No.
scaring them a little bit.
Yeah.
After this, Jean goes back to his house where he finds the poem that he wrote about the sun, and he accuses the sun for
He's just pointing those cues everywhere.
yeah, for sort of, I guess, for not doing more to stop the war. He basically accuses the sun in a similar manner to the way he's accused the whole village of like, you're doing it wrong. And then he rips up his poetry book, and it says the soldier in him had killed the poet. Which is
That was good.
yeah, it's short, it's sweet. It's not as overwritten as a D.W. Griffith title card. And that's the end, pretty much.
Well, yeah, he dies.
Yeah, and then
But
yes, and then he dies. Because he went mad and died. I do think I like this movie more than you. I didn't really get as much of a sort of like respect the troops thing from the ending, so much as a sort of like people turning a blind eye to the suffering that was happening at the front. I think I got more of an anti-war sort of message, as it were, from this movie.
Yeah.
It's hard to say which one was more kind of intentional. In sort of reading about the movie, I kind of get the sense that it was intended as like an indictment of World War One, but then even then, it definitely does have this very kind of like jingoistic or kind of nationalistic bent to it. And yeah, the kind of the morals of it are a little bit janky, a little bit confused, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff in this movie.
Technically,
and
it's like incredible. I think from a technical
Yes.
perspective, this is like one of the best things that we've watched.
it's very like structurally sound,
Mhm.
I suppose.
Yeah.
And adventurous as well.
Yeah, it uses a lot of cool visuals in ways that it feels sort of, for the time anyway, a little bit experimental in sort of how it's approaching things visually. Yeah, dark movie.
Yes. Very
Like,
heavy.
Holy mackerel, is this movie dark. I will say, some of the editing, very choppy. Not my favorite. I found a lot of the editing to be very, just sort of choppy. Like, it would cut the things and cut away very quickly.
Huh.
Like, it hadn't quite figured out the timing of, like, how you can, like, do cutaways.
Speaking of choppy, there's one kind of moment where I like my feeling about it like swung back and forth very quickly, which was there was like a camera on a dolly that was following Jean as he's like walking or running like down a path, like he's coming back home, he's seeing home again. And so there's a camera that's like following behind him, so he's like locked in the center of the frame, and it's going like around the corner of a path, so it's like a very smooth motion around the corner on this dolly track. And so the background is changing in front of him as he runs forward, and he's center in the frame. And then I'm like, oh man, this is a really cool shot. Oh my god, And then he stops, and then like the dolly kind of starts swinging around him and coming to the side of him, and the camera's just like,
Yeah.
and like all of this smooth niceness was like ruined by this like extremely herky jerky camera movement. And it like supposed to be this grand sweeping moment. He's seeing his town again, and then it's sideways, and then it like tilts up, and like he looks at the hill above his town.
Yeah.
Up like turning the camera up. I was like, oh my god, you did all of this and then you ruined it.
Yeah. That, I mean, kind of a microcosm of like the whole movie almost. Like it comes so close to being this like incredible thing, and there's a couple things that really kind of sour it, especially towards the end.
Yeah. But it does make me interested in seeing what he does next.
Yeah. Some interesting behind the scenes stuff from this movie. So while they were filming it, the war was still happening, and Abel Gance returned to the front as part of the sort of like filmmakers battalion. I forget what it's called. But so a lot of the battle stuff is shot on location during an actual battle of World War One, which is insane.
Yeah.
And the sort of zombie ghost army at the end were mostly played by real soldiers who were on leave from coming back from the front, and they were returning from the Battle of Verdun, which is like one of the bad ones, like one of the ones that's just like everyone died. And yeah, like a lot of the people who played the ghosts died like weeks after that was shot.
It's pretty crazy.
Like they're playing ghosts in this movie, and
it's
were
heavy.
actually dead like weeks. Like it's insane. I feel like that sense of like despair is very, I think, comes through in this movie. It's a very sort of like despairing, sort of like angry movie.
It's harsh vibes through the whole film.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I didn't hate it.
I just had intensely mixed feelings about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like I don't really disagree with anything that you said about it.